Hello, I'm Wes Turnbull and welcome to Freemasons The Inside Story. In this episode we take a look at the Seavic Lodge and we chat with Freemasons Victoria Grand Secretary and CEO Peter Henshall.
Hi, we're here today with Graeme Wallace from Hearts of Oak Lodge. Hi Graeme, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Now Graeme, I understand that you're just finishing up your PhD. Can you tell us a little bit about those studies?
My study started really from a charity that we're involved with, sending doctors to the Philippines to correct the faces of children that were born with a cleft lip and palate. And we've been doing that for many years, and I asked the surgeons, well, why not find out the cause of it rather than going to the Philippines every year to fix these faces up. They said, well, we don't do that. We're in the cutting and pasting business, and so I thought, well, here's something that I could do to find the cause of this problem. Because it's not so much just in the Philippines. In Australia, 1 in 600 children is born with a cleft lip or palate. So it's quite prevalent here in Australia, and if we could find what causes it, we would save a lot of problems for the families and for the children that are born that way.
And for those that may not be aware, can you explain what exactly is a cleft lip or palate?
Well, sometimes it's been referred to as a hair lip, but it's really where the two parts of the lip don't come together and there's a gap in the lip. And sometimes it's on just one side or it's both sides, which is called a bilateral lip, cleft lip and palate. The cleft in the palate is where there's no roof in the mouth. The sides of the palate have not come together. And so a child that's born that way, if they're eating or sucking as a baby, the milk or whatever they've got in their mouth is going up their nose as well. So it's a really a difficult problem and something that we would not like any child to have, but it's easily fixed as well by a good surgeon.
So from your studies, what do you believe are some of the contributing factors to a child developing a cleft lip or palate during pregnancy?
Well, there are a number of issues that tend to end up at the same point. We found, first of all, in talking with parents who had had a child, traumatic stress had been involved in some of those early pregnancies. Stress either before conception or soon after conception. And by traumatic stress I mean the woman has found she's pregnant, she goes and tells her husband, I'm pregnant, and he says, well, it's either me or the baby. He doesn't want a baby. Or the woman doesn't want the baby anyway and she's making up her mind to have an abortion or not to have an abortion. That sort of stress is some of it. But then there's physical stress as well, where someone is burning the candle at both ends, they're running a business, they're jogging at night, they're doing everything to physically stress themselves. The third one, of course, is a nutritional deficiency in the diet. And so there are all of these things leading to one thing, and that is a nutritional deficiency in the fetus itself. If a woman is stressed, there is a change in her hormonal response. Same as if you're jumping off a cliff, you get an adrenaline rush. Same sort of thing. Same sort of thing with physical stress, that you get higher cortisol levels, and so there is a change in the hormonal response. And so there's a nutritional deficiency somewhere in the mother, which is denying the fetus of full development.
So in your opinion, what recommendations would you give to a woman pregnant?
The recommendation is not to a pregnant woman. The recommendation is to someone before they become pregnant. Really, 3 months before, they should be planning their pregnancy. 50% of women get pregnant without knowing they're pregnant, and they're not aware of it perhaps for the first month or 2 months. So really, it's a matter of pregnancy planning to get themselves emotionally stable and nutritionally sufficient. And 3 months before, they should be taking an hour every day just to relax do something that they enjoy, take a preconception supplement to make sure they've got the nutritional balance that they need, and then there's a better chance that nothing will go wrong.
And so, Graeme, what exactly has been involved in the process of your study?
Well, the first thing was I didn't know anything about clefts. So I sat down with a lot of women who'd had children with clefts and listened to their stories to find out what was their experience. And I did that here in Australia, on the east coast of Australia, from Queensland all the way down to Victoria. And I also went to the Philippines and asked women there to get some feel for the things that may be important in this study. And of course that's where we picked up on the stress levels. And we published a paper 3 years ago on that. That paper has never been refuted, and it's been cited now internationally. So we think that people are accepting the fact that stress is related to this particular birth anomaly and probably others as well. So that was the first point. The second was to really find out what was going on in the woman's body. And so the only way we could do this is to take some samples, and we took blood, hair and urine from the women. Now the hardest sample to get from a woman is hair. They don't like giving up their hair, and it is actually the most important sample that we could take, because there we can see the mineral balance in the body. So we compared the blood, the level of minerals in the blood and in the urine and the hair. And what we found in particular was that in the women whose child had a cleft, they had a high level of zinc in the hair, but the other levels were quite normal. What we supposed from this was that the woman was not absorbing the zinc or not utilising the zinc. And from that we found another paper written by a fellow called Bergman in 1990, who was studying neural tube defects, and he found the same in neural tube defects. And so it tended to support what we had found. So we did another study, which was just looking at hair samples. And the problem was we were taking the samples after the child was born. It was very difficult to find which piece of hair related to the preconception area. And we weren't able to confirm the Bergman theory, but we still believe that it's the mineral imbalance, because that in both Bergman's work and our work, the women who had a child with a birth anomaly had higher levels of zinc in the hair, but normal levels everywhere else.
Wonderful. Well, Graeme, thank you so much for coming by today and sharing your story with us.
You're more than welcome, anytime. Thank you for having me.
When it comes to the day-to-day running of Freemasonry in Victoria, the man with his hands on the levers is Right Worshipful Brother Peter Henshall, who is the Grand Secretary. Perhaps more used to being on this side of the camera than in the hot seat. But Peter, we welcome you today.
Thank you, Wes. I think it's a pleasure.
Peter, are you the boss of Freemasonry in Victoria?
I don't know that I'd say I'm the boss. I have responsibilities for the administration of Freemasonry, the delivery of member service to all of our members, our 11,500 members throughout Victoria, and also, I suppose, making the public acquainted with what Freemasonry is and why it might be attractive to them.
So where does Grand Secretary sit in the organisation of Freemasonry?
Well, he has a ceremonial role to play. He's a senior Freemason, but as I said before, he also has an administrative role to play in helping govern and direct all of the service, the ethical and ceremonial duties of Freemasonry, and also a role in informing the public and the families of Freemasons what goes on within it.
So how many members are there in Victoria?
It's 11,500, and I suppose while that's been a figure that's been decreasing over time, because we go back to the 1960s, there are over 100,000 members, that decrease is slowing down now. And it's interesting to know that men that come to Freemasonry in the recent past have been on average 36 years old. So despite our average age being around 67, it means that Freemasonry is still relevant to men of 36, 37, 38 today as it ever has been.
So how many staff does it take to run an organisation of that size, and what sort of jobs do they have?
Well, the staff really depend largely on the level of member service that the members require and the degree to which we need to communicate with the public and feel we need to communicate with the public about Freemasonry. My current staff are around 13, and they're split mainly into Masonic services, or servicing and engaging our current members, and into member services and promotional services that look at attracting new men to Freemasonry and their families, and also informing the public through vehicles like this show about Freemasonry.
So that's a reasonable sized business. Is Freemasonry a big business?
I don't see it as a business. I see it as a fraternity. I see it as something that we help manage the individual lodges that sit within our jurisdiction to run. We support them with ceremonial and educational support. We help them empower their members to promote Freemasonry externally, and we help them also maintain the standards that we and the public expect Freemasons ought to hold up to.
So I was going to talk about the sort of challenges that exist today in administering the organisation for its members, but also in managing the perceptions or the image of the organisation in the public domain.
Yeah, I think the image of the organisation is very important. With social media as it is today, it's all too easy to put misconceptions about regarding Freemasonry. And one of our responsibilities is to open up Freemasonry to the public and to try and dispel those misconceptions. For example, a lot of people consider Freemasonry as a secret society. It's really a fraternal organisation that offers men opportunities for personal development and community service. And while through our ceremonies there are some things that we keep private, we do those as a sort of a symbol of our trust for one another, that if we can keep a confidence, then we can be trusted. And I think that's one of the great strengths of Freemasons.
So what are some of the examples of Freemasonry reaching out into the community and making itself more visible in the public?
I suppose the strategic partnerships that we have, Freemasons all over the world, but we like to think particularly well in Victoria, work in conjunction with a number of charities and benevolent organisations to help them in their mission, and of course our mission, which is being an integral part of the community. So we're involved with organisations like the Melbourne Youth Music, the Think Pink Foundation, which cares for men and women going through the breast cancer journey, and organisations that encourage the youth of Australia to flourish. We have a scholarship program, for example, that awards in excess of 100 scholarships each year to the value of over $250,000. So there are a number of partnerships in the community that we believe we can be of mutual benefit to, and that helps us engage also with the community as well as do good works.
Now, we talk a lot about Freemasonry here in Victoria, but how does Victorian Freemasonry relate to Freemasonry in other parts of Australia or even overseas?
I suppose there is a myth that Freemasonry is a worldwide organisation that is out to control the world. Some of the zany people on the social media are propagating that sort of story. And while there's 5 million Freemasons around the world, they're all governed and run on the same guidelines roughly by individual jurisdictions. So within Australia there are 7 jurisdictions representing the 7 states and territories, including New Zealand. In America, for example, there are over 50 jurisdictions with 1 or more Grand Lodges within each, all separately run, all separately financed, funded and all separately administered.
Is there a cooperation or an exchange of information between the Grand Lodges?
Yes, there is. One of the principles of Freemasonry is to recognise other Grand Lodges or other jurisdictions that have similar organisational structures and admission policies as we do. And through that fraternal recognition, we exchange ideas, we maintain similar sorts of standards, and we cooperate in how we practice Freemasonry consistently within our own backyard or around the globe.
And how does Freemasonry in Victoria compare to those other jurisdictions? What are the key differences?
I think they're way out in front, but then again I'd say that. I think one of the things that sets us apart is that we've been prepared, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, to be very open about our Freemasonry. We've done a number of things to do that. We've opened up a number of our ceremonies to the public. So when a lodge each year elects a master or the guy to lead that lodge, there's a ceremony of installation. We've now made that a ceremony that's open to family, friends and interested members of the community. You'll see us at community fairs and public events being very active in the community. When a lodge is opened for the very first time, or a building is consecrated for the first time, there are other ceremonial activities that we also expose to the public. We've been very public about this show, and I think that's a great insight into the sorts of things that we do as well. So there are a number of activities that we engage in to throw the doors open and expose people who are not Freemasons or part of the Masonic family to what we are and what we stand for.
And how's that been received?
I think very well. Men who have come to these open events very often become inquirers as to Freemasonry and ultimately members. And our conversion rate of guests to those events has been quite high.
Peter Henshall, Grand Secretary of Freemasons Victoria, you paint a very interesting picture of an organisation with some challenges in terms of membership and future growth, but also some very encouraging signs embracing technology and new forms of promotion and a good opportunity to grow into the future. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Wes.
Hi, I'm here today with Keith Thornton and Ken Lai, the founders of Seavic Lodge number 8. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Erin.
Keith, can you tell us a bit about Seavic Lodge and what makes it special?
I think the thing that makes Seavic special is that we set out initially to establish a new lodge that was in some ways different to all the other lodges under the United Grand Lodge of Victoria. Different in as much as we wanted to have a relationship built up with Freemasons in Southeast Asia, which is another country, and also to ensure that the lodge cared for the families of members. In other words, we wanted it to be a family lodge. And so when we set this up, the structure of the lodge was that the ladies would attend every meeting. They would attend every dining part of the meeting, and that's worked out very well.
Well, we started decades ago. Actually, it started in the 1960s when Keith moved his working operations to that part of the world. He affiliated with Lodge Taliban. And some years down the track, I became a Mason. It must be in about the 80s that I was made a Mason, and from there on, our relationship with South Asia grew. A lot of visits between time and to a stage where we felt that there's a need to reinforce things a bit more, and hence Seavic. That must be about 2008, I think, that we came up with the idea of forming the lodge.
And how are the lodge meetings conducted with members in different countries?
We keep the overseas members fully informed by newsletters that are produced every month by Seavic Lodge. They also receive a copy of Engage, and they also receive a copy of Freemasonry Victoria. So the members in Malaysia are kept fully informed.
Do any of the members ever fly back and forth for the lodge meetings?
The Malaysians have done that, yes, particularly the ones that were holding office last year. They were required to attend three of the meetings, 3 out of the 6 meetings in that year. That was a requirement Grand Lodge stipulated when they approved the appointment of these overseas members to hold office.
Can you tell us exactly what Seavic stands for?
Yes, Seavic is a descriptive name for the lodge, which indicates the relationship that we've been planning to build up, and that is between Southeast Asia and Victoria. So if you divide the word Seavic into 2, it represents Southeast Asia and Victoria.
Kim, Seavic Lodge is a relatively young lodge. Can you tell us some of the highlights over the past 3 years?
Gee, where do I start? There are so many highlights we had over the last 3 years. I guess the main ones are the progressive growth of the lodge. From day one at our consecration, we had about 71 members. Today we have got 112. So it has been quite progressive. And that same year of our consecration, 2011, we did or rather Seavic coordinated a visit to Malaysia to attend the District Grand Installation of the District Grand Lodge of the Middle East. It was then Grand Master, I think, Warren Werner, led the delegation of 72 members. So it's quite a big contingent. The following year, 2012, we had a special meeting in Malaysia with dispensation. I think Keith mentioned earlier. It was a big highlight, initiating 2 local using the Victorian Constitution, not seen by many in that part of the world.
As the founders, do you feel that you accomplished what you set out to do with Seavic Lodge?
Yes, I think we are happy that we have achieved the original intentions of starting this lodge, which is to develop closer relationships between Freemasonry in Southeast Asia and Freemasonry in Victoria. And this is proven to be true because we now have 60 members in Victoria and 50 members in Malaysia.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in today, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Hi, I'm Jim Spreadborough and welcome to From the Archives. I've got a couple of special bells here I want to tell you about tonight. What we have in our lodges in the past, not so much today, but the lodges would all have a bell or some description to bring the brethren to order at the supper time. And the director of ceremonies or the master of ceremonies would ring the bell when he wanted attention, and everyone then would be quiet, we'd hope. Now this particular bell here is pretty special. The bell is from the HMAS Cerberus, and the HMAS Cerberus name was changed to the HMAS Platypus in April 1921. The boat was sunk in Port Phillip Bay as a breakwater in September 1926, and this was presented to Neptune Lodge by Brother J.W. Patterson. And the bell itself is from the HMAS Cerberus and has been refurbished, and here it is tonight here. Special bell from there, and I suppose it wasn't a very good name to be called the HMAS Platypus, and so they kept the name as HMAS Cerberus. And if you drive down Beach Road near Black Rock or Brighton that way, you'll see signs pointing to where the Cerberus was sunk. Special little treasure that we have. Now this bloke here, this is the mother or father of all bells. Now this was presented and it belonged to the Caledonian Lodge. Now there was a ship way back in the 1800s called that. We are not sure whether this bell was from that or not, but I'm going all out to try to find out that if it is, because if it is, it would be a real treasure, a bell from the Caledonian. And why this is incredible, you'll never be late for dinner when you hear this one. Now if that hasn't woken the brethren up in the lodge room, there'd be something wrong. That's quite an incredible bell. And further to it, if we find out that it is from the wreck of the Caledonian back in the 1800s, we'll let you know, but it's just another little special bell.
Thanks for joining us. To find out more about Freemasonry, visit the Freemasons Victoria website at www.freemasonsvic.net.au or phone us on 1800 Freemason. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, LinkedIn and Google+. Next week on Freemasons The Inside Story, we visit Melbourne Youth Music. See you then.